Right now, without realizing it, you just copied someone. Maybe it was the way a colleague crossed their arms during a meeting. Maybe it was the tone your friend used on the phone, and an hour later, you caught yourself using the exact same words. Maybe it was something smaller, a posture, a gesture, the particular rhythm of a laugh. You didn't decide to do it. You didn't even notice it happening. But it happened. And the real answer for why is far stranger and far more ancient than anything you've been told. Because what you just did is not a social habit. It's not politeness. It's not even entirely conscious. What you just did is one of the oldest survival mechanisms your species ever developed. A system so deeply wired into your brain that it still runs in the background of every single human interaction you will ever have for the rest of your life. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is the story of why you mirror. Your brain contains a class of neurons that do something no other structure in your body does. They fire not when you perform an action yourself, but when you watch someone else perform it. They activate when you observe. When you see pain on someone's face, a cluster of neurons in your own brain lights up in response as if you felt it too. When you watch someone reach for an object, the motor regions associated with reaching flicker into activity inside your own skull. You are at the neurological level, constantly simulating the experiences of the people around you. These are called mirror neurons, and when neuroscientist Giacomo Rizzolatti and his team at the University of Parma first stumbled onto them in the early 1990s, they weren't even looking for them. They were studying motor control in macaque monkeys, measuring the activity of individual neurons in the premotor cortex, the brain region involved in planning and executing movements. The experiment was straightforward. A monkey reaches for a peanut, the neuron fires. Simple. Expected. Unremarkable. Then something strange happened. One afternoon, a researcher walked into the lab holding an ice cream cone. He raised it to his mouth. The recording equipment was still connected to the monkey. The neuron fired, even though the monkey hadn't moved at all. It took years of careful, meticulous experimentation before Rizzolatti's team was willing to publish. The implication was too large. They were looking at evidence that the brain doesn't experience the world through isolated individual perception. It experiences the world in part through the simulated perception of others. The boundary between self and other, at least at the neurological level, is far thinner than anyone had assumed. When the findings were finally published in 1996, they quietly rewrote the foundational assumptions of cognitive neuroscience. V.S. Ramachandran, the neuroscientist at UC San Diego, who would later call mirror neurons the neurons that shaped civilization, wrote that they might do for psychology what DNA did for biology. That is not a small claim, and yet the deeper you go into what mirror neurons actually explain about human behavior, the more that claim feels not like an exaggeration, but like an understatement, because here is what mirror neurons actually mean for your daily life. Every time you watch a movie and your chest tightens with dread during a chase scene, your mirror system is running. Every time you wince when someone else bumps their knee, that's your simulation network firing. Every time you feel vaguely uneasy around a person who seems uneasy or inexplicably calm around someone who radiates quiet confidence, that is your brain doing something extraordinarily sophisticated. It is reading the internal state of another person and generating a corresponding experience inside your own body. This is not metaphor. This is neuroscience. But mirror neurons are only the beginning of the story, because the mechanism they underpin, the mechanism of unconscious mirroring, goes far deeper than empathy. It governs something more fundamental. It governs how you form bonds, how you build trust, how you navigate social hierarchies, and how you survive inside the most complex social environment any animal on Earth has ever had to navigate. Your ancestors lived in groups that made survival possible. Go back far enough, 300,000 years, give or take, and the savanna is vast, the predators are real, and the group is everything. A single human alone does not last long in that environment. A group of humans, coordinated, reading each other, moving together in emotional and behavioral alignment, that is a machine built for survival. And what keeps a group aligned is not just language, not just shared goals, Not just division of labor. It is something older and faster than any of those things. It is behavioral contagion. Psychologist Elaine Hatfield at the University of Hawaii spent decades researching what she termed emotional contagion, the process by which the emotional states of one person automatically transfer to another. Her findings were stark. You don't choose to catch someone else's mood. It happens before conscious processing even begins. You see the micro expression of fear on someone's face, a twitch of the brow lasting less than a quarter of a second, far too fast for your conscious mind to register, and your amygdala is already responding. Your own facial muscles begin to subtly mirror that expression. Your body produces the chemical signature of fear. Your behavior shifts. The emotion moved from one person to another without either person being aware of it. In an ancestral environment, this is not a bug, this is the feature. If one member of your group smells a predator and their body freezes, and your mirror system catches that freeze response and copies it before your conscious mind even processes what's happening, you just bought yourself several hundred milliseconds of survival advantage. In a world where the difference between life and death is measured in fractions of a second, that is everything. But here's the part they don't tell you. That system doesn't turn off. It was never designed to turn off. It is running right now in your office, in your home, in every conversation you have. It is reading the people around you, generating simulated versions of their internal states inside your body, and subtly pulling your behavior in their direction, all below the waterline of your awareness. The scientific term for the behavioral output of that system is chameleon effect, and the research behind it is some of the most quietly disturbing data in modern psychology. In 1999, psychologists Tanya Chartrand and John Bargh at New York University designed a series of experiments to measure just how automatic and pervasive unconscious mimicry actually is. They brought participants into a lab, paired them with a confederate, someone working for the researchers who wasn't identified as such, and had them complete a task together. The confederate was instructed to perform specific, subtle, but distinctive behaviors during the interaction, rubbing their face, shaking their foot. Then the researchers watched what happened. The participants, with no awareness and no instruction, began to mirror those behaviors. Foot shaking increased when the confederate shook their foot. Face rubbing increased when the confederate rubbed their face. And the mimicry wasn't crude or theatrical. It was subtle, natural, completely outside the participants' conscious awareness. When asked afterward whether they had noticed anything unusual about their own behavior, most of them said no. Chartrand and Bargh called this the chameleon effect because, like a chameleon matching its environment, humans automatically match the behavioral patterns of the people around them. Not to deceive, not deliberately, because that is what the social brain is built to do. But the story gets even stranger when you look at what that mimicry actually does to the people being mirrored. In follow-up experiments, Chartrand and Bargh found that when people were unconsciously mimicked by others, they reported liking those others more. They rated the interaction as smoother. They described the conversation as more harmonious. They felt, without being able to articulate why, that the person they were talking to understood them. Think about what that means for a moment. Your mirror system is not just passively receiving information from others, it is broadcasting. And the people around you are receiving your broadcast, and when your behavior aligns with theirs, even below the threshold of conscious awareness, they feel a sense of connection that has nothing to do with what you said, what you looked like, or what you had in common. It is purely behavioral. It is ancient, and it is happening in every room you walk into. This is the invisible architecture of social trust. Now extend this beyond one-on-one interaction. Now think about groups, because here is where mirroring stops being a curiosity about individual behavior and becomes something far more consequential. Sociologist Nicholas Christakis at Yale, along with political scientist James Fowler at UC San Diego, spent years mapping what they called social contagion. The way that behaviors, attitudes, emotional states, and even physical health outcomes spread through social networks. Their findings, published in their book Connected and in a series of landmark studies in the New England Journal of Medicine, showed something that still feels almost impossible to fully absorb. Your emotional state, your happiness, your anxiety, your sense of meaning or meaninglessness is influenced not just by the people you directly interact with. It is influenced by the people who interact with the people you interact with. Up to 3 degrees of social separation, emotional states ripple outward through a network, transferred through the same mechanisms of behavioral contagion that helped your ancestors synchronize on the savannah. If your friend's friend's friend becomes happy, there is a measurable statistical increase in the probability that you will become happy, even if you have never met that person. Even if you never will, your emotional life is not a private internal event, it is a node in a network. And that network is constantly exchanging signals. Let that settle for a second. Because if this is true, and the data says it is, then the question of who you spend time with is not just a lifestyle preference. It is a neurological and psychological intervention. The people you are around are not just affecting your mood in some vague, intuitive sense. They are physically shaping the activity patterns of your brain, the emotional baseline your nervous system returns to, the behaviors that begin to feel automatic and natural to you, because you have been mirroring them silently, continuously, for as long as you have known them. This is not self-help. This is neuroscience. And it raises a question that is genuinely difficult to sit with. How much of who you think you are, your mannerisms, your emotional habits, your instinctive responses, is actually yours? Researchers call this the social inheritance of the self, and it begins far earlier than most people realize. Andrew Meltzoff at the University of Washington has spent decades studying infant imitation and found that newborn humans begin mirroring facial expressions within the first hour of life. Not days, not weeks. Hours. An infant less than 60 minutes old, shown an adult sticking out their tongue, will stick out their own tongue in response. The mirror system does not need to be learned. It does not need experience. It arrives fully pre-loaded, ready to run, because it is not a social skill. It is a biological imperative. From that first hour forward, you begin absorbing the behavioral world around you. The emotional regulation strategies of your caregivers become your emotional regulation strategies. The ways the people around you hold tension in their bodies, in their jaws, their shoulders, the particular rhythm of their breath when things go wrong, become the ways you hold tension in your body. The unspoken rules about how emotion is expressed or suppressed, how conflict is navigated, what success looks like and what failure means, all of it seeps in through mirroring long before you are old enough to consciously evaluate any of it. By the time you are old enough to have opinions about who you are, the mirror system has already been running for years. It has already installed thousands of patterns, preferences, and automatic responses that feel utterly natural and self-generated because you have never known yourself without them. You are, in a meaningful sense, a composite of every person you have ever been close enough to mirror. And now, of course, the story gets complicated, because the environment in which your mirror system now operates is nothing like the environment it was designed for. Your ancestors lived in groups of roughly 100 to 150 people. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar at the University of Oxford calculated what has become known as Dunbar's number, the cognitive limit of stable social relationships the human brain can maintain, at approximately 150. That is the rough size of a village, a tribe, a unit. For most of human history, those 150 people were your entire world. You mirrored them. They mirrored you. Emotional states spread and stabilized within a bounded, intimate network. Now think about the environment your mirror system is navigating today. You carry a device in your pocket that exposes you continuously and without boundary to the emotional states, behavioral signals, and social performances of millions of people simultaneously. Your mirror system does not know how to distinguish between a real-time interaction with someone in the same physical space and a curated, algorithmically optimized stream of behavioral signals designed to provoke the strongest possible emotional response. To your nervous system, the feed is real. The signals are real. The contagion is real. Social psychologist Jonathan Haidt at New York University has argued in extensive research that the restructuring of the information environment after 2012, specifically the widespread adoption of algorithmically driven social media, produced measurable changes in adolescent mental health that track almost perfectly with the rise of depression, anxiety, and social fragmentation in that population. The mechanism he points to is, at its root, the same mechanism Elaine Hatfield identified in her work on emotional contagion. You are catching states. But now the pool of states available to catch is vast, turbulent, and specifically engineered to maximize engagement, which means it is specifically engineered to generate the most activating, the most disturbing, the most emotionally dysregulating signals possible. Your mirror system evolved for a village. It is now being asked to run in a stadium, and there is no off switch. But here is the final turn in this story. Here is the piece that brings you back to yourself, because the mirror system is not just a receiver. It is also a transmitter. The people around you are mirroring you right now, constantly. Every time you walk into a room, you are broadcasting an emotional state, a postural pattern, a behavioral signature, and the people in that room are receiving it. Their nervous systems are already beginning to simulate your internal state before you have said a single word. The quality of the emotional environment in the spaces you inhabit is not just something that happens to you. You are one of its architects. This is not comfortable knowledge, but it is honest knowledge. Tanya Chartrand's research showed that people who are in a more empathic, other-focused state of mind mirror more accurately and more completely. The more present you are, the more genuinely attending to another person rather than performing or strategizing, the more your mirror system functions as it was designed to. And when that happens, the person you're with feels it, not as an idea, not as a conclusion they reason their way to, as a felt sense of being understood, of being met, that registers in the body before the mind even begins to process it. This is what real connection actually is at the neurological level, not shared beliefs, not agreement, not even shared history. It is the lived, felt, moment by moment experience of two mirror systems running in resonance with each other. Your ancestors knew this, even without the language to describe it. Sitting around the fire, breathing the same air, their mirror systems synchronized their emotional states, coordinated their behaviors, and built the kind of social trust that made cooperation and therefore civilization possible. The technology was not fire. The technology was each other. You still have that technology. It still works exactly as it did 300,000 years ago. The question is only whether you are using it or whether you have handed the controls to something that doesn't care what you become as long as it keeps you watching. Right now, without realizing it, you just copied someone, and now you know why. And now you have to decide, who do you want to be copying?